welcome. Today we will talk about the interesting subject of magnetism. This is also a big shout out to anyone who knows more about this subject. Please contact me, leave me a message because I want to learn much more about ley lines, about magnetism in health. I want to find out more about magnetic radiation, etc. Anyway, mesmerized in the context of hypnotized. If you are of the Anglo-speaking community, you have probably more than once used this term. It is actually derived from Franz Anton Mesmer, and he was a German doctor and astronomer who worked with magnetism. And his ideas on magnetism are and were highly influential in the field of hypnotism. So as you all know by now, I am a hypnotherapist, so it's very interesting for me in much different ways. But let's talk about magnetism and a very interesting theory on ley lines and the holy places, the sacred places all over Europe. The working of magnetism as a means to cure physical or mental ailments and the famous mysterious ley lines. For some it's very dubious, for others it's real science. But what is it? What can it do for us? This is my question. And those ley lines, these are straight lines that go from sacred place to sacred place all over Europe, and who are meant to have a magnetic energy, so to say, and this gives straight lines or paths. So is this pseudoscience or is this reality? Is this popular belief? And what about walking with a dowsing rod? Is this an act of brilliance or insanity? To be honest, I don't own dowsing rods, but if I was sure that no one could see me, I will probably buy some and work with it. And if I really knew no one was looking at me, I also would wear a cloak, maybe. But to be honest, even though I have really researched this really deep, and I personally took throughout the years different stances in this phenomena, and I still don't know, to be honest. So that's also why I shout out to anyone who can really tell me how it is. So, but what I do know is that it is a very interesting subject, and besides that, like I said in a previous video and something that has become my motto, it does not have to be real in a scientific way to be true. And like I said before, the placebo effect is an effect that is recognized even by science, but it's not really captured or understood by science in numbers or graphics. And not that I understand it, but I work with it and I am interested in it. And in the old days, this organic phenomena was understood as magic, which is a much better suitable term in my opinion anyway. Or is placebo just a scientific word to call magic normal? I don't know. But before we dive in into those famous ley lines and sacred places, I go back to Franz Mesmer, who is, for me as a hypnotherapist, a very interesting person. So this German doctor, as you read his works, and the ones who witnessed him at work or experienced his animal magnetism, as he called it. And this was a very strange thing. When I recollect what he all was about, he sat before his clients. Most of time it were female clients, and it seems to me that women were somehow his expertise and major focus in his science. So he sat in front of them, like I sit here, knee to knee, and with a lot of gestures and actions and feeling with his hands in front of the clients, he cured them with his animal hypnotism. And I also read that he sometimes had to perform some extra investigation in separate rooms in his practice. But what that is, it's not described in any detail. So I also know that his clients had to drink water with particles of iron, and afterwards he put them in a place, the particles, with a magnet to cure their ailments, and whatever pathology they suffered from. And of course, I leave it up to you to judge or further investigate the stuff if you want. But it sure is interesting because in our blood there is in fact iron present, but also things like radio waves, gamma waves, X-ray waves, electromagnetic fields, all these things are connected with magnetism, and they all can have a measurable influence or working on the human body. And what I find the interesting fact is that if you take iron fillings, you can order them with a magnet. So bringing order into chaos, that's also a great Heaton principle, creating order out of chaos. So that's also a vast topic in mythology, as you probably know. Anyway, I could tell a lot more about magnetism. I leave it up to you how you receive this. But for me, it's like wine and ambrosia, because the more wonder I can experience or witness, the richer my life gets. And also the globe, the earth, is surrounded by magnetism. Magnetism is in the earth as well. And what really fascinates me are the so-called ley lines. So the straight lines or paths that connect the sacred places, chapels, pre-Christian sacred places before that. And these mysterious ley lines, they go over great lengths all over Europe. And this led, of course, to many speculations, both in science and in the more spiritual or religious circles. And like in most cases, you will see one camp taking over the rational septic stance, and another camp of on the extremity of obscure quarks and clones. So like I said already, I still don't know what to think about it, but maybe you can help me out in understanding it fully. The interesting thing in my investigation is, at least for me, that this was not a phenomena in Europe alone. And you will find this all over the world. And the well-known, the Chinese Feng Shui science, which is still practiced today in the East and also here in the West, has always been an important part of the Chinese metaphysics. So already more than 1,000 years before our era, the Chinese, they wrote about energy lines in the earth, and the usage of such dowsing rods, where I talked about, to trace those lines was already in use more than 2,000 years before our era in China. And no worries, we will come back to Europe soon, but I first have to tell something really interesting about China and the Chinese perception of those energy lines, which could be very relevant for our perception of our ley lines. Old Chinese belief was that if a house had to be built, then a geomant first had to find out if that particular place was suitable to build the house. So he had to find out if it had the right radiation. So a building place for a house that needed the right energy radiation in order to receive a good and happy fortune for the ones who had to live there. So it could happen that the energy wasn't good to build a house on, and that somehow meant that the bottom was disturbed by the dragon that lived in the subterranean tunnels. So if you would dig in that place anyway, you would disturb the dragon would become angry, and this would cause you a lot of bad omens on your house in regards of sickness or death or whatever misfortune. But that's where it gets interesting and relevant. For sacred temples and buildings, this Chinese conception was the other way around. So sacred places, they had to be built on such places in order to keep the dragon in his place in his subterranean tunnels. And another relevant point in the Chinese perception, you will find this out when I come back to Europe, is that they meant that the earth had two magnetic fields or magnetic streams, so to say, a male and a female, a positive and a negative. And they were also meant to be active in different heights. And they were both represented symbolically by the dragon and the tiger, sorry. And the place where those energies came together, this was the ultimate place to build a sacred building. So keep this concept in mind. Back to Europe now. So it is a fact that there were many heathen sacred places on top of a hill. This is also a very common spiritual concept that you will find everywhere. So, and actually it's very simple, to be as close as possible to where the gods reside. And on those places, the equinoxes and other important celebrations happened with big fires and so on. So with the Christianization, they built chapels and churches on those places in order to install the new faith with the Europeans. In Christianity, the dragon, mind the Chinese dragon I talked about, was taken as a symbol of evil as well. So that's where the famous dragon slayers come into play. There are many local smaller and bigger dragon slayers as saints, but the most famous are without doubt Saint Michael and Saint George. And the last one, Saint George even became the patron of England. And That's also why they have the white flag and red cross that is called the St. George flag, which is the St. George cross. So he also got listed as an official martyr. So the martyrs I talked about in the previous video with All Saints Day. So England is very interesting in this matter because they have the famous St. Michael Ley Line that goes for more than 440 kilometers and connecting many sacred places, amongst them the famous Glastonbury. Strange thing, or rather remarkable thing in this context, is that each time that a sacred place is in the height, it is a chapel that is dedicated to Saint Michael. And this trend is very obvious throughout England, because chapels, churches on the highest places are most of the time dedicated to Saint Michael, whilst churches, chapels on the lower hills and places are dedicated often to Saint George, even though Saint George is the patron of England. So the contextual understanding of high and low energies and metaphysics between the East and the West could be more significant than you would imagine. So also lesser saints that were dragon slayers were depicted slaying a dragon, often pinning it down with a lance. And this is also a symbolical, ritualistic act to determine the newborn sacred place. So somehow they pin down the dragon on or under the sacred place, just as the Chinese did. So they brought order in the chaos, or good trumps evil. Anyway, these are things that I really find interesting, and if you can give me more solid information on this subject, that would be very welcome. And even if you have information that debunks my findings, that's no problem. I would really be thankful, because I am just searching for truth and wonder. But this is a subject and observation I wanted to share, because the more wonder you can experience, the more value in your life. And there goes my clock again. Please subscribe, please like, and give me a message under this video. See you next time. Cheers.